Hare Krishna. Today we will be discussing a very interesting topic. Is reincarnation or rebirth a fantasy shown quite often in some TV serials or movies? Is it some blind faith seen in some Eastern religions? Or is it a reality? Is it a fact? If it is a fact, why don't we remember our past lives? Is there any scientific research done in this field of reincarnation or rebirth? All these questions will be answered in this video. Before we start, let me tell you that we will be coming up with many such videos on scientific and logical understanding of spirituality. If you are interested, please subscribe to this channel and please help us spread this knowledge all around. Let us start with this question, that is there sufficient research done in this field of reincarnation or rebirth? The answer is yes. There is a wide range of research done by many scientists and researchers, and most of them are from American or European countries. The reason being, there is no sufficient explanation in their culture or religious texts in those countries. But in our Vedic culture, in the Vedic scriptures, we find great detailed explanation of reincarnation. One of such scientists, his name is Dr. Ian Stevenson. He is a Canadian-born American psychiatrist who was a professor for 50 years in the University of Virginia School of Medicine, and he started a new department named Division of Perceptual Studies, and he conducted a huge research in this field of reincarnation. This person devoted 40 plus years of his life in finding out more than 3,000 substantial, well-studied cases of reincarnation. And it's not just in India. Hardly 20% of the cases are from Indian origin, and other 80% are non-Indian cases. All over the world, many cultures, many religions, many backgrounds, everywhere Dr. Ian Stevenson found many cases of reincarnation. All these cases are documented in more than 14 books published by Dr. Ian Stevenson, or which are based on the research work of Dr. Ian Stevenson. This is one of the most famous cases, named as James Leninger, who was a fighter pilot in his previous life, and he died in the Second World War. This child remembered all the details of his past life. He was fascinated by aeroplanes. He would draw pictures of planes bombing, and he would tell all the details of planes and their the bomb kits and many other things about fighter planes. So his parents were intrigued, and later it was found to be a case of reincarnation or rebirth. And later, when they carried out detailed research, they could find that this child remembers all the details exactly. The name of the ship, the name of his colleagues, their nicknames, and so many other events of his past life. And there are many such cases. This is just one case. There is also a documentary published about this James rebirth story. You may watch it after this video. Let us now discuss about the findings of this research done by Dr. Ian Stevenson. There are 12 points. We'll discuss one by one quickly. First one, spontaneous memories. These children were able to remember all the details of their previous lives. The name of their parents, their neighbors, their relatives, their friends, the details of their house, their schools, everything. And not just remembering, they were also emotionally attached to all these personalities and events of their previous life. Third thing was found that all this information which the child produced was perfectly verifiable. In all the cases, Ian Stevenson has cross-checked all the information about the previous life. Behavioral patterns. The children showed some peculiar behavioral patterns which was not matching to their current cultural setup of this life, but it was exactly matching to their previous lives. Fifth thing is birthmarks or physical anomalies. Sometimes they found, or in the most of the cases where the past life was remembered, they found that the death was accidental or a murder, or the patient suddenly died while he was operated in the operation theater. So they found that the cases where the person was murdered in the previous life, exact spots where the person was attacked by a knife or gun or whatever was used for murdering the person, on exact same spots, the person has got birthmarks in the next life. Recognition of family or acquaintances. They could, when they met while cross-checking, the boy or the girl, he or she could exactly point to each person with their name, their nicknames, and the patterns of their behaviors. Everything was matched, in reality, when they met the previous family. Seventh thing, language and dialect. Many children started speaking some language which they never heard in this life. Their dialect, their tone of or their way of speaking was matching with the previous life experience. Cultural knowledge. Many aspects of previous life's culture were imbibed in the life of these children. Change in behavior and preferences. There is a case in Stevenson studies that one boy, he was born in a family where everyone was non-vegetarian. They were eating meat. But this boy refused that I will never touch meat. When he was very young, 2-3 years, they had to bring food from outside for him, as he was a very strict vegetarian. When his previous life was traced, they found out that in previous life he was a pure vegetarian person. So such traits, such preferences were also seen to be carried in the next life. Traumatic death memories, they remembered most of these cases that their death was traumatic in the previous life. Age of onset and fade. Such memories were found to be remembered when the child starts speaking, when he's 2 or 3 years old. And most of the cases, the child remembers such memory till his 6th, 7th or 8th year. And in some cases, till 15th year also, they found out. And reunion with previous family was done and cross-checked in all the cases. So if it is a fact, and such wide spectrum of research is conducted, and it is proven that this is not a fantasy, reincarnation or rebirth is a fact. We are not this body, but we are the drivers of this body. So then the question arises, why doesn't everyone remember their previous birth? Why don't we remember our past life? Before we answer this question, we should understand how and why does reincarnation happen. If we don't understand this, we will not be able to answer why don't we remember it. So first of all, we need to understand that we are not this body. As our scriptures inform us, that we are made up of 3 realities, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. We have, rather to say, 2 coverings above us. We are not this physical body. Neither are we the subtle body which is inside this body. So this physical body is made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, pancha mahabhut. And the subtle body, the sukshma sharira, is made up of man, buddhi, ahankar. This is also not our real identity. We are spirit souls, Satchidananda. We are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But we are covered with these 2 coverings. So when a person dies, this gross body is left here. The person leaves the gross body, but the subtle body is carried. Along with the subtle body, man, buddhi, ahankar, mind, intelligence, ego, the living entity, the soul, leaves this gross body and travels to another next destination, the next gross body. And how does it happen? Or what is the process of reincarnation? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram. Whatever state of mind you are at the time of death, based on that you will receive the next body. And also it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, karmana daiva netrena, by the activities, by karma, and daiva netrena, under the guidance of the prakriti or the nature which is designed by the Supreme Lord. So we understand that our present existence is not the only or the final reality. There is also a higher spiritual reality, that is our real identity as spirit souls. And we do not belong to this world, because this world is material. It's made up of Pancha Mahabhut and the subtle elements. But we are spiritual and we belong actually to the spiritual world. And there is a great description of spiritual sky which is beyond the heavens, which is beyond Indra Loka, Jana Loka, Tapaloka, Brahma Loka. It's beyond this Brahmanda also. There is a spiritual sky which is called as Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, where the Supreme Lord is eternally staying with his devotees in this eternal sky. And we also belong to that place. But till the time we are here, we are changing our bodies, taking birth after birth. Why? Why are we changing bodies and taking new? Because we have left the Supreme Lord, Vishnu or Krishna, and we have come to this material world to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. We have rejected him and we are trying to enjoy separate from Him. And the Supreme Lord has given us the opportunity to enjoy separate from Him. He is so kind that although we have kicked Him away, He is ready to provide all the things which are required. And one of the stumbling block in our enjoyment is our distress, our problems, our troubles, our sickness, our deaths in so many lifetimes. We take so many lives because we have so many desires to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. And now, if we start remembering all the previous lives, will we be able to enjoy this life? Absolutely not. There are so many cases in Dr. Ian Stevenson's study that they saw that when a child remembers the past life, there is a big trauma in many cases. There is a case where a child, when they went to meet the previous life's family, he saw that his widow wife from the previous life, she had got remarried. And this boy was really very upset and angry. He started tearing off pictures of her new husband and so many things, and he was really distressed. So this shows that the attachment, the identification of previous life is a barrier to our enjoyment in this life. And we all are here to enjoy separate from God, and God facilitates that. He is so kind. So it is also an arrangement of the Supreme Lord that we forget the past lives, so that we can enjoy and start a new chapter in this life. Another reason is that we have a tendency to forget. We don't remember. Like suppose today is Monday. If I say, what were you doing exact this time on last Monday? It's very difficult to remember. If I say, what were you doing on this exact date in the last year? It's much more difficult to remember. Then what to speak of what we did in our previous lives? It's very tough. We have tendency to forget. We don't remember things exactly. This is also another reason that we forget. And the most important reason is the Supreme Lord, Krishna, makes this arrangement that we forget past life so that we focus on the business for which we are here, to rebel against God and to enjoy separate from Him. This is an arrangement provided by the Supreme Lord. Now someone may ask the question, what is the use of discussing and worrying if we cannot remember? If we are not remembering, why to worry? We don't remember previous life. Neither are we going to remember this life in our next life. So why worry? So this logic is very futile, because it's not that things which we don't remember are not important. Like we are reading on the screen, there are some English characters, some letters, A, B, C, D. So we all have learned this sometime in our childhood. But do we remember exactly when I learned to start writing A, B, C, D and start forming words and sentences? Do we remember the exact time and date when we learned these things? We don't remember. But what we learned is important. We learned writing and reading, and that's what is useful now. But we don't remember exactly when we did what. Another example, handling boiling water. It's very crucial to handle boiling water carefully. Otherwise, we get burned in our fingers or hands. So we all have learned this. But do we exactly remember when we got our first burn? When which finger got burned? On which date in my childhood? Do we remember? We don't. But the effective influence of that incident is stored in our consciousness. The effective learning is stored in our consciousness. Similarly, although we do not remember the particular incidents of our past lives, we have learned many things. The experiences have caused some imprints on our consciousness, because of which we have got a certain mindset, a certain inclination, a certain personality in this life. So it is very important. That's why this life is also important, because based on how we live this life, our future will be decided. And that is the exact reason that although we do not remember past life, and we may not remember this life if we take rebirth again, but it is important. The choices, the decisions, the desires which we cultivate are very, very important. So when we understand this, that we have been going through such cycle of birth after birth after birth, it is actually not so pleasing to the living entity, to the soul. Because the real happiness is in connection, in yoga, with the Supreme Lord. So He is calling us through the message which He gives in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures. But we are stubborn that we reject His message and not turning towards Him. It is for our benefit He is telling all this knowledge, and it is our responsibility to take to that knowledge, practice it in our life, and go back to the spiritual world. Thank you all very much for watching this video till end. Please help us share this knowledge and subscribe to this channel if you have not done. We will be coming up with many such videos very soon. See you then. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.